Yellowstone National Park. It feels like a dream. I'm about to embark on an 8-day journey through the southeast corner of Yellowstone, the most remote region in the continental United States. I'm gonna set off here from 9 Mile Trailhead, head south on the thoroughfare until I reach the south boundary, and then cut northwest on the Continental Divide to Heart Lake, summit Mount Sheridan, and then finish up at the Heart Lake Trailhead. At least that's the plan. I'm honestly at a loss for words at this point in time. It's so beautiful out here. Nothing to do but hit the trail. A little over a mile in, and I'm at my first creek crossing of the trip. This is Cub Creek. Just big enough where I'll probably pop off my boots and wade across. I actually ended up picking my way through this pile of down logs and didn't have to pop my boots off at Cub Creek. Approximately 2 miles in on the Thorofare Trail, and I've come to my second creek crossing, and it looks like I'm gonna have to get my feet wet this time on Clear Creek. This is the beautiful and aptly named Meadow Creek. About 6.5 miles into my journey so far along the Thorofare Trail. And I crossed it right up there where the trail goes across. It was a nice easy crossing. There was rocks. There's this bird right here. I didn't even notice him until I was about 6-7 feet away, and he is not too worried about my presence. I'm just gonna try to walk by him a little bit. Hey buddy, it's all right. Most of the Thorofare Trail so far has been in the woods, but I've popped out into this meadow with a gorgeous view of Yellowstone Lake on this beautiful day. I'll take this opportunity to say a big thank you to my buddies Will from Kansas and Emmanuel from Tennessee, who picked me up this morning at Heart Lake Trailhead and gave me a ride up the 9 Mile Trailhead. Really appreciate it, fellas. There are some ungulates feeding right off the trail. There they go. They didn't like me talking. Right here beside Yellowstone Lake. This is Columbine Creek. Very pretty watercolor through there. And this should mean that I'm a little over 9 miles into my trip so far, with probably about 2.5 to go to camp. I'd imagine this is quite the stream bed when the waters are flowing. But right now, it is dry as a bone here along the Thorofare Trail. Home sweet home. I've made it to camp for the night. This is site 5E4, located right here on the shore of Yellowstone Lake. And it looks like someone left a shoe for me. That was very nice of them, but I won't need it. I'm gonna go ahead and get my food hung up, filter some water, and then get camp set up for the night. On this trip, I will use the Yellowstone South map by Beartooth Publishing. Let's take a look at the map for day 1. I started my journey in Yellowstone National Park today at 9 Mile Post, trailhead 5K5. From there, I followed the Thorofare Trail down along the eastern shore of Yellowstone Lake until I reached my campsite at 5E4, also known as Brimstone Bay. And today was about 11.6 miles. Here's a look at my tent setup on night 1. It's not a great pitch. In a perfect world, the ridge between the two poles in the middle would be taut. But for those of you who know me, know I am typically a hammock camper, so I'm still getting my tent setup dialed in. That being said, what I do really like about this particular spot that I'm set up at is my tent is surrounded on 3 sides by brush. So if a bear did try to visit in the middle of the night, there's really only one way that he could come in without making a lot of noise. Campsite 5E4 is absolutely beautiful. Situated here on the eastern side of Yellowstone Lake. That large landmass in front of us is the promontory, and that separates the southeast arm from the south arm of Yellowstone Lake. The first day of my journey here in Yellowstone National Park was absolutely awesome. I got to enjoy a lot of beautiful sights coming down the eastern side of Yellowstone Lake. A lot of great forests to hike through, and then of course looking at the lake itself. I saw one person maybe 5 minutes after I started off, and then I saw a small horse packing group a little while after that, but besides that there hasn't been a lot of traffic on the trail today. I did see a bird that did not care that I walked right by it, and I saw a handful of ungulates a little bit off the trail in a meadow. I've got camp set up, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of this beautiful evening here at campsite 5E4 on Yellowstone Lake. That'll be it for day 1. Good night. The Brimstone Fire, by far the largest of the 2019 season in Yellowstone, was started near campsite 5E4 by lightning, just 2 weeks after I spent the night here. This fire forced the closure of campsites along the southeast arm of Yellowstone Lake, as well as miles of the Thorofare Trail. Well, good morning. Made it to day 2. Survived my first night in Grizzly Country. Last night was calm. Nothing happened, fortunately. Did get pretty chilly, probably about in the mid-30s. It's probably still not much warmer than that right now because the sun hasn't come up on this side of the lake yet. But a peaceful night, which was very good news. I've got a big day today. I have my 2 largest river crossings of the trip so far later on today. And the river crossings were kind of the biggest thing I was nervous about coming into the trip. So this will be 2 big challenges later on. I have Beaver Dam Creek about halfway through the day and Trappers Creek at the end of the day. So both of those are much larger than anything I did yesterday, but hopefully they'll be in good shape at this time of the year and it won't be a problem. I'm gonna eat some breakfast, drink my tea, get camp packed up and get ready to hit the trail here on day 2 in Yellowstone National Park along beautiful Yellowstone Lake. Popped out of the woods along the Thorofare Trail into this nice meadow. Have an awesome view of the southeastern arm of Yellowstone Lake. Out here a couple miles into my day along the Thorofare Trail. A great view of the Absarokas out there. My first real good view of those guys. And the end of the southeastern arm of Yellowstone Lake. Made it to Beaver Dam Creek. Probably about 6 to 7 miles on the day today, and the crossing doesn't look too bad at all. I also came all the way out here to Yellowstone just to meet some guys from Raleigh, North Carolina, and they've been nice enough to let me hike with them for a little bit. Hiking through the thoroughfare. This is the biggest meadow that we've come to along the trail so far. Awesome mountains in the background. And I'm still hiking with my buddies from Raleigh. At this vantage point along the Thorofare Trail, we've got an awesome view of the Yellowstone River down there. Looks like an epic pool below those rocks. Also mountains in the background. Another beautiful view of the Yellowstone River here in Yellowstone National Park. And look at that huge floodplain that is currently dry. I've made it to Trappers Creek, and this was supposed to be my biggest creek crossing of the day, but it does not look bad at all. And there's the Absarokas flanking our view. Let's take a 360-degree look from the middle of Trappers Creek. Beautiful views, no matter which way you turn. And I didn't even have to take my boots off to make it across. Home sweet home. I've made it to campsite 6C2, aka River's Edge. Let's take a look at the map for day 2. I started today's journey at campsite 5E4 and followed the Thorofare Trail down along the southeast arm of Yellowstone Lake until it breaks away from the lake and then starts to overlook the Yellowstone River. We continued down the Thorofare Trail until I reached the spur intersection for campsite 6C2 and then finished off the last section to my campsite tonight. Today's was around 12.5 to 13 miles. Day 2 has been an absolutely scenic day here in Yellowstone National Park. Between the southeast arm of Yellowstone Lake and the Absarokas and the Yellowstone River, it's just been a lot of beautiful places to look at today, and I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. The only part that I haven't liked of the entire trip so far was the spur trail out here to campsite 6C2. It is quite overgrown, very muddy and mucky in significantly long areas. So that wasn't a good time, but you gotta take the good with the bad. I met a group of 2 this morning coming up the Thorofare Trail. They were on their last day of a 7-day trip. And then a little bit later, I met a family of 4, actually from Raleigh, North Carolina, the same place that I live. And they let me hike with them for most of the day, so that was really cool. Really appreciate it. Carl, Jenny, John, and Elizabeth, thank you guys for letting me hang out with you today. I had a great time, and I hope that you have a great rest of your trip down through the Thorofare into the Tetons. Didn't see too much wildlife today. I was definitely making a lot of noise the times when I was alone on the trail, so hopefully scared anything away that was waiting there. I've got camp set up, and I'm ready to enjoy another relaxing evening. About 25 miles into the trip so far. The only part of my body that's really sore is my traps, my upper back. I'm definitely pushing the carrying capacity of my Mariposa, probably close to 40 pounds, but I get a little lighter every time I eat food. So I'm going to go ahead and call that the end of day 2 and enjoy this beautiful view beside the Yellowstone River. Good night. The Yellowstone River, which both feeds and drains Yellowstone Lake, is the longest undammed river in the continental United States. Well, good morning. Made it to day 3 and survived my second night in Grizzly Country. Last night was another uneventful night, which is a blessing, and also another chilly night, probably around the same temperature as last night or the night before, or maybe a couple degrees warmer. You can see the sun starting to poke up, and hopefully it's going to hit me here before too long, because those nice warming rays will feel good on this cold morning. Yesterday evening was a nice relaxing evening. There was a couple squirrels who were playing around the campsite, chasing each other, chattering. There was a beautiful, beautiful sunset here over the Yellowstone River. So I had a good evening, good night last night. Now today, I'm going to have to go back out through the spur trail to get back to the Thorofare Trail. Definitely not looking forward to that. The trail's pretty overgrown and pretty mucky, but once I get past that and start to get warmed up, I'll be good to go. Now I do have my biggest river crossing of the trip at the end of today. That'll be the Thorofare Creek, and that's the biggest crossing to date. My 2 big crossings yesterday turned out to not be so bad. Beaver Dam and Trappers Creek both were low. Trappers Creek I was actually able to walk across without even getting my feet wet, but Thorofare Creek will definitely be a significant crossing, and I'm hopeful for the best. Other than that, I'm going to enjoy the beautiful view this morning, drink my tea, get camp packed up, and then hit the road and continue on my trek in Yellowstone National Park. Alrighty, well I did survive the spur trail back from 6C2 to the Thorofare, and I dropped my bear spray in the water twice, so I hope it still works. I hope that has no impact on the spray. I didn't do a good job yesterday of protecting my pale flatlander skin from this high altitude sun. So I'm gonna try to do a better job of that for the rest of the trip. I feel like Allen Iverson with these sleeves on. But another beautiful morning on the thoroughfare. Let's do it. I've made it to my first river crossing of the day. Mountain Creek. Definitely looks like the feet will be getting wet, but should not be a bad crossing at all. This may be another section of Mountain Creek. Fortunately, it does not look like I'll have to cross this guy as the trail cuts back through the woods. Here's a sweet look at Ocean Plateau across this meadow along the Thorofare Trail. I'll be going up and over to Ocean Plateau at some point tomorrow. The Absarokas to the left, to Ocean Plateau to the right, and here I am, stuck in the middle with you. The Thorofare Trail has linked back up with the mighty Yellowstone. In the past 2 or 3 miles of trail, I've seen 7 different relatively fresh bear scats. So this is Cliff Creek, and I was able to rock hop my way across. I've made it to the Thorofare Ranger Station, the most remote dwelling in the continental United States. Let's go see if anyone's home. I am now on the South Boundary Trail, heading towards my campsite for the night. I've made it to my ford of the Thorofare Creek. Now just need to pick the best place to go across. Right when I finish crossing the thoroughfare, I run across Carl and his family again, and they're about to cross as well. It's not too bad. Let's take a 360-degree look at the windy South Boundary Trail. I just got to hang out with Carl's family again. That was awesome to see those guys for a second time, and they're gonna cut down into the Teton Wilderness for the rest of their trip. So definitely best wishes to them. Beautiful scenery out here. Home sweet home. I've made it to camp for the night. Site 6Y2. The last mile or mile and a half of the trail to get to this campsite was absolutely brutal. A complete bushwhack through willows the entire way. There basically wasn't a trail. It was just a dirt path underneath the willows. But I made it right here on the banks of the river, and it's a beautiful sight. Let's take a look at the map for day 3. I started today's journey at my campsite from last night, 6C2. So I retraced the spur, got back on the Thorofare Trail, and followed that down all the way to the Thorofare Ranger Station, the furthest dwelling from a road in the continental United States. From there, I retraced my steps for a little bit, dropped down on the thoroughfare, hit this mile-long connector trail, and then crossed over Thorofare Creek. Just for fun, I continued down past campsite 61 to the south boundary, retraced my steps again, and then did the last little stretch through the willow bushwhack to my campsite tonight, the South Yellowstone River, 6Y2. Today was around 14 miles. Day 3 was another great day in Yellowstone National Park. A lot of the hiking today was sandwiched between the Absarokas and 2 Ocean Plateau, so pretty much spectacular views all day long. Everything went really well up until the last mile and a half or so of the bushwhack through the willows, which was not a good time, but it's gotten me to this beautiful campsite. So again, you take the good with the bad. Didn't see too much wildlife today. I definitely make a lot of noise along the trails so that I don't see any bears, and that probably keeps the rest of the stuff away as well. But I did see a bald eagle flying over one of the meadows along the thoroughfare, so that was cool. I saw 8 people today, 2 families of 4. The first family of 4, the mom and dad were with 2 young boys, and mom and dad were actually from Hendersonville, North Carolina. And then the second group of 4 that I saw was my friends from yesterday, Carl, Jenny, John, and Elizabeth. I got to hang out with them for a little bit after we all crossed the Thorofare Creek, and it's always good to see those guys. They're also from North Carolina, so it's a North Carolina takeover in Yellowstone this week. Now, as long as nothing crazy happens tonight, which I always hope that it won't, we're going to go ahead and call this the end of day 3. Good night. The headwaters of the Yellowstone River rise not far upstream from this section before it flows into Yellowstone Lake. And good morning. Made it to day 4. Survived my 3rd night in Grizzly Country. Another uneventful night, although I did have company. 3 guys who were traveling the thoroughfare, Jim, Alan, and Mark, came through a little bit before dark. It is many miles to the next campsite, so I said, hey guys, stay here. They're happy to do so. It is another night with about the same temperature as we have before, and the first thing this morning will be a crossing of the Yellowstone River, and that'll be the biggest crossing of the trip. After that, I'll go up and over to Ocean Plateau and end the day at Fox Creek. Looking forward to another beautiful day in Yellowstone. Packed up camp this morning and made it to the ford of the Yellowstone River. This will be my biggest ford of the trip, but hopefully it's no more than 2 feet or so. I'm about to find out here in a second. Awesome. Made it across the Yellowstone River. Found a pretty sweet ford spot that only reached up to about the knees, so it wasn't too bad. And hopefully that'll be the biggest ford of the trip. We've made it to our second creek crossing of the day, Lynx Creek. We're gonna try to find a way to get across it without getting our feet wet. We'll see if that works out. We've begun our climb up to Ocean Plateau, and the scenery is gorgeous.
Definitely gonna be a whole new level of tired after today. Yeah, these climbs.
A beautiful stream crossing here along the South Boundary Trail with lots of awesome pink wildflowers. We're stopped for lunch here at this beautiful alpine meadow on the top of Ocean Plateau, just east of the Continental Divide. So the waters here are still flowing into the Atlantic, but not for too much farther. We've made it to what we believe is the Continental Divide on Ocean Plateau and the South Boundary Trail, Yellowstone National Park. So that direction flows to the Atlantic, and over there flows to the Pacific. Gorgeous alpine meadows up on Ocean Plateau, and we are now on the Pacific side of the Continental Divide. Mariposa Lake. It's especially cool because both Jim and I have Mariposa backpacks. The banks of Mariposa Lake, high in the Yellowstone backcountry. Found some evidence of an elk carcass here coming down the Ocean Plateau. We just crossed Plateau Creek, which should put us close to 2 miles from camp for the night. Let's take a look at the map for day number 4. We started today at campsite 6Y2, which was closely followed by a ford of the Yellowstone River. From there, we followed the South Boundary Trail all the way across Ocean Plateau. We hit Mariposa Lake. We continued on the South Boundary Trail, hit the fork with Ocean Trail, and continued down to campsite 6M7, where we stopped at for the night. Today was around 11.5 miles. We made it to campsite 6M7, Fox Creek. Today was another wonderful day in Yellowstone. It did rain right when we were about to get to the campsite, but didn't last too long, maybe an hour at the max. That was the first bit of inclement weather that I've experienced in the end of my 4th day, so it's been awesome. Today I got to hike with Alan and Jim and Mark again all day. We went up and over the Ocean Plateau. It was super beautiful on top. Crossed over the Continental Divide, which was pretty cool, and then made our way back down the far side to get to Fox Creek. We saw a couple deer walk by just a couple minutes ago, but that was really the only wildlife today. And then these guys were the only people that I saw today, besides a group of 5 rangers on horseback, and one of them was the superintendent of the park. The sun's about to set here, so we're going to go ahead and call this the end of day 4. Good night. Good morning. Made it to day 5. Survived my 4th night in Grizzly Country. Last night was the first weather that I've had come through on the trip, and we actually had a brief but very intense hailstorm come through. So that was pretty wild, but fortunately it didn't last too long. Another cold night last night, probably right around freezing, maybe a little bit above, and pretty good besides that. Today I'm going to set off from the Fox Creek area and head up the Continental Divide Trail to the Snake River confluence. So that'll be what I'm doing for most of the day. I'm going to split off from the buddies that I've been with the past day or so, Jim, Alan, and Mark. They're going to go out the south boundary, and I'm going to head up. So looking forward to another great day in Yellowstone National Park. We've made it to our first creek crossing of the day, and it's a definite foot wetter. Just split off from the Thorofare 3, and I'm going to hop on the Continental Divide Trail and make my way towards Heart Lake. And I'll stop close to Heart Lake for the night. A beautiful look at the Snake River, which was our previous crossing. Down here below the Continental Divide Trail. Made it to my second ford of the Snake River for the day, and looks like another set of wet feet. High above the Snake River on the CDT, it's got itself a nice little canyon down there. Let's take a 360-degree look at my view from lunch today. That's the way that I've come. Down there is the Snake River, out of sight at the moment. And there's the way I'm heading. The Continental Divide Trail, or CDT, stretches over 3,000 miles along the Continental Divide of the Americas from Canada to Mexico, across Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. This section of the trail overlooks the Snake River, not far downstream from its headwaters along Ocean Plateau. Around a mile or so down the trail, I saw very distinct sets of large grizzly and small grizzly tracks, and it rained last night, which would lead me to the assumption that those were made within the last 12 hours or so. Definitely not what you want to see, but I haven't seen anything on the ground recently, so hopefully I left the area with those guys. But I just continue to make a lot of noise, and they should do their thing and stay away. It's a beautiful day in Yellowstone. In less than 48 hours, I'll be right there. Home sweet home. I've made it to camp for the night. This is site 8C5, aka the Snake River confluence. And the Snake River is maybe 100-200 yards away. Feels good to make it to camp. Here's a look at the Snake River, right close to campsite 8C5. I'm about to grab some water from it, and I also got water from the Snake this morning, about 11 or 12 miles upstream. Practice makes perfect. This is my best pitch of the tent yet. Definitely not perfect, but I'm starting to get that ridge line a little tighter. Let's take a look at the map for day 5. I started the day at Fox Creek and went down the south boundary trail until it connected with the Continental Divide Trail, also known as Fox Creek Trail through this area, or Snake River Trail. I hopped up on that, continued along the CDT for most of the day, finally reaching the junction with the Heart River Trail. The campsite 8C5 was just a little south on the Snake River Trail, which gave me a total day of around 12 miles. Day 5 has been another great day in Yellowstone National Park. The only people that I saw today were Jim, Mark, and Alan, and I split with those guys early on. The rest of the day didn't see anyone along the Continental Divide Trail. It was awesome scenery up through that. It was more of higher hiking, more open views, which was a cool change of pace. And the Snake River was kind of flowing down in a little canyon below me for most of the day, so definitely awesome scenery. Didn't see too much in the way of wildlife today. A couple birds of prey circling around in the meadows, and there's a lot of mosquitoes here in camp tonight. Definitely the most mosquitoes that there's been in any place that I've been so far. In between the poles for the food hang behind me is Mount Sheridan. Tomorrow I'm going to hike to the base of Mount Sheridan, and then on day 7 I'm going to go up to the top of it and look out over a good portion of Yellowstone National Park. I've got camp set up, and I'm gonna get ready to settle in and enjoy a relaxing evening here on day 5. Good night. Mount Sheridan barely peaks up here, but it is the tallest mountain in this section of the park and towers over the landscape at 10,313 feet. In 1870, Lieutenant Doane described it as the central and most important landmark in the Great Basin in which it sits. Good morning. Made it to day 6 and survived my 5th night in Grizzly Country. Last night was another uneventful night, and it was, I would say, the warmest night of the trip. Today will be my shortest day so far, so I'm excited for that. Should only be about 9.5 miles. I'll leave the Snake River, cross the Heart River a couple times, get up to Heart Lake, circle around the top of Heart Lake, and end my day at the base of Mount Sheridan. That'll be my 6th day here, and I'll spend my next 2 nights in the same campsite there at the base of Mount Sheridan. Looking forward to another beautiful day in Yellowstone National Park. I've arrived at the first river crossing of the day, Heart River. Doesn't look too deep, but it's definitely a wet foot crossing here to start out the morning. Not sure how well this will show up on camera, but on this marker tree on the far side of the Heart River ford, there are a lot of brown hairs on the tree, which suggests that it's a grizzly scratching post. At my second crossing of Heart River for the day, this one looks pretty wide, but not too deep. Outlet Creek is my third notable crossing of the day, and it was only about 1/10 of a mile past the last Heart River crossing. I gambled and put my boots back on after drying my feet. It looks like there's a pretty tricky way across on these logs, so I'll just try that. I made it across Outlet Creek. One boot stayed dry, one boot got a little wet. That's the risk you take. It's been very overcast today, which I appreciate as another block from the sun, but I certainly hope that it is not foreboding of inclement weather to come. I'll hope for the best. Mount Sheridan is looming larger and larger in the distance. I've had glimpses of Heart Lake through the trees, but this is my first uninstructed view. There's Mount Sheridan, and over on the far bank I can see a little thermal activity. It's pretty windy out here. Here's a closer look at the thermal activity that we spotted from the other side of the lake. At the base of Mount Sheridan. Home sweet home. I've made it to campsite 8H2. I believe this one's called Sheridan Creek, and it is right on the edge of Heart Lake with a beautiful view of the lake. Still not perfect, but I do believe that I've achieved my best pitch yet. And good timing, because hopefully this tent will stand for 2 nights. Tonight and tomorrow night. Let's take a look at the map for day 6. I started the day at the 8C5 campsite and began on the Snake River Trail, which quickly turned into the Heart River Trail back on the CDT. I followed the Heart River Trail around Heart Lake and the Trail Creek Trail around Heart Lake. All this is a CDT. Continuing from the other side of the map, I finished up the north section of Heart Lake and got on the Heart Lake Trail and off the CDT to come down the west side of Heart Lake and finish up with my campsite 8H2 at the base of Mount Sheridan. Day 6 was around 10 miles. Day 6 in Yellowstone National Park has been another awesome day. I approached Heart Lake, circled around the northern part of Heart Lake, and the whole time I was hiking today, Mount Sheridan was getting bigger and bigger, and now I'm right at the base. As long as the weather is good tomorrow, I'll be climbing up to the top. I've seen actually 9 people today, 5 CDT hikers and 2 other hikers and then 2 guys who came down here to the lake edge and fished for a little bit. And I got to watch one of them catch a cutthroat trout, a big beautiful one. That was really cool. Cooking up some dinner and gonna enjoy a relaxing evening here by the edge of Heart Lake. That'll be the end of day 6. Good night. The original nickname for the area that became Yellowstone National Park was Wonderland, and it's easy to see why. Good morning. Made it to day 7 and survived my 6th night in Grizzly Country. Another uneventful night last night. Always good news. Temperature was around the same as the night before, so a little warmer than the rest of the trip. Probably in the low 40s, not too bad. Today is my penultimate day here in Yellowstone National Park, and it is a beautiful, clear day right now. Should be perfect conditions to go ahead and head up to the top of Mount Sheridan. So that'll be what I'm doing today. I'm excited to get up to the top and look out over Yellowstone National Park. I'm not even close to the top yet, but the views are absolutely outstanding. There's Heart Lake. All the pale beige areas to the left of Heart Lake are where the thermal makes it too hot for grass to grow. Getting closer to the top, and it's pretty cold up here. A few more steps and I'll have reached the top of Mount Sheridan. This way looks out over part of the Red Mountain Range, which Mount Sheridan is a part of. And as we continue to work around, there are the Tetons. Getting to this vantage point has taken 7 days and nearly 80 miles. I started on the far side of Yellowstone Lake and followed that down until I picked up the southeast arm of the lake and continued past down the thoroughfare to the south boundary of the park. From there I crossed over to Ocean Plateau and then followed the Snake River up to where it joins with the Heart River, continuing on that to Heart Lake, circling around the top of Heart Lake, and then climbing up Mount Sheridan. The yellow stones at the top of Mount Sheridan provided a natural seat for an awe-inspiring overview of the land that had magnanimously hosted me for the past 7 days, Yellowstone National Park. Let's take a look at the map for day 7. I started at my campsite 8H2, hit up on the Heart Lake Trail to the Mount Sheridan Trail, came up to the tippy top, all the way back down, and then back home to 8H2. Today was around 10 miles. Day 7 has been another super cool day in Yellowstone National Park. Perfect weather once again. The climb up and down from Mount Sheridan wasn't too bad since I only did it with a day pack, and the views up top were absolutely incredible. It was really awesome to see all the area that I'd hiked over the past week or so, and so I really enjoyed it up there. This is my last night of the trip, night number 7, and I've already ate dinner. I'm gonna get camp put together, eat a couple more snacks, and then get ready for bed. Hopefully get a decent start out. Finish off the trip by walking through the Heart Lake Geyser Basin, which should be pretty cool. Unless something crazy happens, we're gonna go ahead and call that the end of day 7. Good night.
Good morning. Made it to day 8 and survived my 7th night in Grizzly Country. This is the last day of my trip here in Yellowstone National Park. I'm definitely sad to leave because it's been an absolutely incredible trip. Exceeded my wildest expectations in every way. But I am excited for today's hike out because I'll be going through the Heart Lake Geyser Basin, and I should be able to see a lot of cool thermal activity, which I haven't seen too much of on my trip so far. So that should be a really cool, unique part of the trip, going out through that thermal area. So definitely looking forward to that. Last night was another warmer night, like the past several nights, probably in the 40s, and you know, another peaceful night. Nothing was going on. Always good to have happen. I'm gonna eat some breakfast here, get camp packed up, and then get ready to hit the trail so I can enjoy my last stretch of journey before heading out of the park.
Let's take a look at the map for day 8, the final day. I'll start from my campsite on Heart Lake, 8H2, travel up the Heart Lake Trail, past all these hot springs and thermal areas on the Heart Lake Trail, and then finish up at the Heart Lake Trailhead where my car is parked. The final day should be about 9.5 miles. There's a beautiful pool here right along the trail. Awesome colors. Several thermal steams rising in the meadow with Heart Lake in the background. Another beautiful set of hot springs right by the trail. Pretty cool stuff to see. So long, Heart Lake. I appreciate the hospitality. There's a little bit of bubbling water here in this thermal feature. Doesn't smell too good. The end of my incredible 8-day backpacking adventure in Yellowstone National Park draws nigh. Right ahead is Heart Lake Trailhead. I have half a mind to turn around and head back in, but I don't have enough food or toilet paper. What an incredible journey. Yellowstone surpassed even my wildest expectations. Super awesome time that I had over the past 8 days, and very thankful to have had such a great trip Weather was perfect. One evening of rain and hail. Besides that, sunny the whole time. Didn't see any wildlife, but I was making a lot of noise and I kept all the bears away, which is a huge blessing. You know, I'm out of superlatives to describe the scenery, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes, the meadows, the forests, the thermal areas, everything in between. Spectacular. So cool. And perhaps the biggest surprise to me, and one of the things I enjoyed the most, especially since I was backpacking through the most remote region in the continental United States, was just all the awesome people that I got to meet and spend time with along the way. From Will and Emmanuel, who gave me a ride up on my first day, to Carl, Jenny, John, and Elizabeth. Thank you for letting me hike with y'all for 2 days. To my buddies Jim, Mark, and Alan, another thank you to you guys for letting me hike with you for another 2 days. I had a really awesome time meeting y'all. Really great time being in Yellowstone. There's not much more I can say. Goodbye.